What is up, you guys? UFC Vegas 70. We got a light heavyweight clash between Ryan Spann and Nikita Krylov. Now, this is the last event taking place before we got that big UFC 285 fight card. Of course, we got John Jones taking on Cyril Gane, Valentina Shevchenko taking on Alexa Grasso. So just be patient. We got some big fights to be talking about here in the near future. In the meantime, another decent UFC fight card. I'm happy to say we're coming off another profitable event. And if you guys want to catch the entire recap of UFC Vegas 69, is posted here at the channel. Hopefully you guys like that free play I threw your guys' way, posted here on the channel as well. You guys can expect those to come your guys' way periodically. 5-unit play on Nazim Sadyakov. And what else can I say? For those of you that are new to the channel, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button because, like I said, there's going to be free plays coming your way. The channel is ever so fastly evolving, as you guys see here. And please hit that like button, everyone that's tuned in. It really does carry some weight for me. We're trying to get this channel, get some momentum and whatnot. So please do that for me if you guys could. And with that all being said, we're going to jump right into the first fight of UFC Vegas 70. We have Jose Johnson taking on Garrett Armfield. Jose Johnson. Are you guys familiar with Jose Johnson? He just had a victory on Dana White's Contender Series. It was, I believe, his second time fighting on the show. He did drop the ball the first time around. Jose Johnson is a fighter that people have had high hopes for some time. He's still only 27 years old. And we'll scroll back real quick. He's coming off a big victory against Jack Cartwright. A couple of victories over at Fury FC before that. A victory over Mo Miller, a Dana White's Contender Series veteran in his own right. And the two losses, you take a look at the two losses that he's had against Martinez and Ronnie Lawrence. Those are respectable names in the game. The Ronnie Lawrence fight, that was the fight that really derailed him. He came into that fight as a big-time favorite, or at least a hefty favorite. That's where everybody was talking about him. He had all that buzz, and that's where Ronnie Lawrence went out there and made a name for himself, used his wrestling to really stifle Johnson in that fight. And, going into this fight, we're going to get to the betting odds here in a second. But I think that if anyone's taken Armfield here, they're thinking that he can implement a similar type of game style. We know that Armfield does favor his wrestling. He likes to push the pace upon his opponents. And I think that some people are feeling that Armfield's going to go out here, push the pace on Johnson and kind of smother him. But, just take note of what Johnson's been doing recently, because Johnson has shown to have been working on his overall game. We saw him pull off a triangle choke on Mo Miller. That was on Dana White's Looking for a Fight as well. So that fight did get some publicity. And he is a fighter that's showing evolution. He's been attacking off his back. He's been working back up to his feet within his fights. And he's a dangerous striker. If you pull up tape on him dating back to early in his career, we've seen him go out there and really put it on his opponents, landing knockouts in a variety of ways. As you see here against Pipe Vargas, knees, elbows, strikes, victory over Ryan McIntosh. A lot of these fights you can pull up on YouTube, and you'll be decently impressed with his striking. He's a dangerous fighter. I'm going to be favoring Jose Johnson to get the job done here as we pull up the betting line, the live betting line on Bovada.lv. And you'll see that Jose Johnson's a slight underdog at plus 120. Like I said, people are a little skeptical of Jose Johnson's takedown defense. I think that they feel he might get smothered a little bit or just have the pace push on him with the grappling. But I think that Jose Johnson will be the fighter that's throwing the significant strikes out there, making Garrett pay as he tries to push for those takedowns. I could see Johnson landing some nasty elbows as he looks to stuff those takedowns. Johnson, to me, just seems to be a little bit more of a dangerous fighter here. And he has momentum on his side as he's on a 3-fight winning streak. And finally, getting that chip off his shoulder, getting the victory on Dana White's Contender Series and his redemption fight there as well. He's very young, and we'll take a look at how they stack up real quick. But Jose Johnson, just 27 years old. Garrett, very young as well, 26 years old, coming off the loss against David Onama. I was not really that impressed with him in that fight. He tried to push the pace with his wrestling in that fight, and a lot of his takedowns were stuffed. And eventually, he was defeated down on the mat. So don't be surprised if you see Johnson pulling out some BJJ down there as well and having success. Garrett's a tough customer, but give me Jose Johnson there. And obviously, I feel there's more value on that underdog line on him. Hailey Cowan taking on Ailin Perez. This girl, Ailin Perez, she's fun to watch. She has a fun IG as well. Go check her out. She's shaking her thing like usual, as we saw she was when she was walking out to the octagon in her UFC debut. But all that shaking and all that wasn't enough for her to get a victory in her UFC debut against the talented Stephanie Egger. She was eventually choked out in that fight. Perez was looking to do what she normally does in her fights, which was pushing the pace, trying to bully her opponents, going across the cage, getting a hold of Egger, but she wasn't having success with her grappling. Perez is a tough chick. And if you pull up all those regional fights that she's had, you'll see that she's went out there and she's bullied her opponents, but they were against lower level fighters, very low level fighters in my opinion. So I wasn't impressed with anything there. You do take a look at her one other loss before coming into the UFC. That was a fight where she got hit with a DQ. So technically she was in control of that fight. I think you could pull that fight up on YouTube if I remember correctly. And she was inflicting damage there. So her real lone loss was the Stephanie Egger fight. But again, fighting lower level opponents. So don't put too much stock into her resume there. Just understand that she's tough and she comes forward. But you can say the same exact thing about Hailey Cowan. Hailey Cowan had a very, very toughly fought fight on Dana White's Contender Series where she eked off a split decision victory. I wasn't overly impressed with her, if we're being quite honest. And as that fight went on, she was kind of on the losing end. She had more of her success early in that fight. Not to say that she wasn't still digging deep late, but she ended that fight on bottom. And she's tough. She fights out of the southpaw stance on the feet. She's scrappy, and I think that she could have some success in the striking department in this matchup. But she has about a 3.5 inch reach advantage here. She's 3 inches taller. She is the more rangy fighter. She's a scrappy girl. Like I said, not overly impressed, but with everything that I've seen from Ailin Perez up until this point, I don't feel confident saying that Perez is going to get the takedown here and really bully Cowan down there. I think that even if Perez gets a takedown, I see Cowan getting back up to her feet, similarly to what Egger did when Egger was briefly taken down that one time in the fight. I could see something just like that happening here. And at the end of the day, I think that Cowan will start to land some shots and just maybe this fight plays out closely, but I have to favor Cowan getting the job done here. And I do not say that very confidently because, like I said, I haven't been overly impressed with what I've seen from her on tape. So, we take a look at the betting line. Hailey Cowan is a -145. I think it's an accurate line. Maybe it should even come down a little bit. Possibly maybe like a 135, 125. But I think it's accurate in the sense that Cowan is the slight favorite here. I was tempted maybe to go at Perez, and I've heard some buzz with people talking about taking Perez here. But I think realistically, when you break down the tape and you predict how this fight's going to go, I think you got to slightly lean towards Cowan way, in my opinion. And then real quick, we'll look at some other intangibles. Cowan's 31 years old, right in the prime of her career. From an age perspective, not necessarily from an experience perspective, only 9 pro fights. She should be getting better. And you could say the same thing with Perez. And obviously at only 28 years old, we should see growth in her game. But she might be a little bit too distracted working on her booty shaking and whatnot, while Cowan's we're working on her craft, her fighting craft. And I'll go with Cowan there. Nurullo Aliev taking on Rafael Alves. Now, Rafael Alves, a very fun fighter to watch. I've had the pleasure to watch him on the regional scene way back in the day, at your local Titan FC events in South Florida. He was a fighter that really had a lot of success over at Titan FC before he eventually made his way to Dana White's Contender Series, had a big victory there. Had a big victory in the UFC, defeating Mark Diakese as an underdog. Obviously, I remember that fight very well as I had it as an official play. Again, at dog odds, obviously that was a fun fight to watch for me there. But Rafael Alves is a fighter that you wouldn't be wrong if you question his cardio and his conditioning and the amount of output that he puts early on in his fights compared to the later half of his fights. And that could be a problem here against a fighter like Aliev, who has proven that he can go out there for 15 minutes and really push the pace with his grappling. Now, he's also shown that he can go out there, push the pace. He can push the pace with his grappling early and look to get you out of there, as we just saw in Dana White's Contender Series, where he solidified a takedown against Josh Wick and just bombarded him with strikes and was able to get the ref to stop that fight there. Nurullo Aliev is a very promising fighter from what we've seen from him so far. He's only 23 years old. He's very young. The Tajik Eagle. He looks like Khabib. I mean, you got to bring that up, right? I mean, the guy looks like Khabib. He has Eagle in his nickname. Of course, that's going to be a talking point. Khabib, one of the GOATs of the game. But look, I'm definitely taking Aliev to get the job done here. I've liked what I've seen from him. But, need I bring up the match that we just talked about earlier from UFC Vegas 69, where we had the Chechenian facing off against Jamal Emmers? Rafael Alves is a dangerous fighter, as is Jamal Emmers. Maybe some early hype on Aliev without really seeing a larger sample size. I mean, there's questions like that. I think this is a little bit different, though. I have a gut feeling that Aliev is going to be a little bit more of a true fighter than what we saw from the Chechenian last week. And yes, I will be taking Nurullo Aliev. Stylistically, I think he's just going to go out here, push the pace. He has a 4-inch reach advantage. He's 2 inches taller. He's the larger fighter. I think he's going to wear on Alves. He's going to hang on him. But understand that Rafael Alves is a dangerous fighter. And he's dangerous in a multitude of ways. He could land some heavy leg kicks on you. He could take your legs out. He could land some big shots with his boxing. He could hurt you there. And not only can he just finish you with the TKO or a knockout, but he could have you fall right into his submission arsenal. He could drop you, slap on a guillotine choke, and put you out of there. Similarly to what we've seen from the Teller, in his prime. So, just don't sleep on Rafael Alves. He is a dangerous fighter. But yes, I am taking Nurullo Aliev. And right now, Aliev is a -185 on Bovada.lv. So we kind of see that betting line going towards his way. All right. So, at a -185, be careful. That line's getting a little high. And I have a lot of respect for Rafael Alves. But I still got to say that I'm rolling with Aliev even at a line like that, because I kind of like him what I'm seeing here. And stylistically, I think he breaks him down. My boy, Joe Solecki, getting a little bit of a layup fight here. Some believe, against Carl Deaton III. Carl Deaton III. We saw him scrapping over on PFL against Alejandro Flores. Speak of the devil, we were just talking about Flores about a year and a half ago. Went to a split decision with him, so it was a closely contested match. Since then, 2 victories in a row, taking out Justin James, and then also coming off a rear naked choke victory over at WXC. So, he's 33 years old. He's still throwing down in the game. And, here, I think that he's going to be in a little bit over his head against Joe Solecki. Let me cut to the chase here. I'm very high in the grappling abilities of Joe Solecki. I think that Solecki's going to have success when this fight touches the mat, and I do think it is going to touch the mat. Look at the Teller and Solecki chopping it up about 2 years ago, man. Boy, does time fly, huh? Time does fly. But, since then, since I've had this conversation with Solecki, we could take a look at some of the work that he's been putting in, but just know that he's not even 30 years old yet. So, coming off a victory against Alex Da Silva, and then before that, he had that split decision loss against Jared Gordon. But you guys know Jared Gordon, an underrated fighter, and Gordon's the type of guy that can go out there and hand a lot of guys in the division an L if they show up on an off night. And I really do believe that was just an off night for Solecki. His game's growing. And then before that, victories over Jim Miller, Austin Hubert, Matt Wyman, and of course, dating back to his James Wallace victory on Dana White's Contender Series. Joe Solecki, like I said, is just going to be a step above him when this fight touches the mat, and I do believe that Solecki will push the grappling here, probably lock up some type of body triangle from the back. He'll control him, maybe set up that rear naked choke. I'm sensing a submission victory here for Solecki. Solecki's coming in as a -550 favorite. As to be expected with this guy Deaton coming in with just not really a lot to talk about. And Solecki, just a fighter that we know is very dangerous. Give me Solecki to pull that submission off before the third bell even rings. Now, this fight is definitely going to play out to be a fun one here. Ode Osbourne taking on Charles Johnson. Ode Osbourne coming off probably the toughest loss of his career, where he got knocked out by Tyson Nam there. Ode Osbourne is a fighter that has shown that he does have some mental lapses in the cage at times. The fight against Manil Cape as well, he was having some early success, and then flew right into that flying knee. How about that? The flying knee didn't fly to him. He flew to the flying knee. He stepped right into that knee, didn't even see it coming. Not trying to make light of the situation, but Ode, in my opinion, is a fighter that's very talented, very quick twitch. He's an extremely fast striker, and is also shown to have some submission skills. But he is a fighter that kind of has a hard time keeping it all together at times. Charles Johnson is a fighter that's really living up to his potential right now. I really, really liked what I saw from him in his most recent fight, where he went out there and absolutely bullied Jimmy Flick. Now, of course, Jimmy Flick was coming off a long layoff, but Jimmy Flick is a talented fighter. He's a talented grappler. And Charles Johnson had success everywhere that he went in that fight. And I think that his confidence is just at an all-time high right now. He's really starting to get grounded into the UFC. Remember, he was just fighting outside of the UFC not too long ago. Finally got the call up, took on the extremely talented Muhammad Mokaev, and really overperformed in a lot of people's eyes. A lot of people thought that Mokaev was going to go out there and really dominate. It really wasn't the case. Mokaev was pushing the grappling and kind of stifling Johnson, but really not too much going on in that fight. I think that Charles Johnson's really proving that he is more than a UFC caliber fighter. He's a fighter that's going to be hanging around. Already has victories over Zhalgas Zhumagulov and Jimmy Flick, and is screaming that he wants to stay very active. He'll have a 2-inch height advantage here, even though he'll have a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Ode with a nice little frame there for his height. I think that Ode is going to be dangerous here. If these both men are throwing down on the feet, I think that Ode is always live to crack somebody and hurt them. But overall, I think that Charles Johnson will be smooth with his defense. He'll avoid that big shot. I think he'll mix in some grappling, and just overall he'll mix things up, and he'll be the fighter that is ahead of Ode. I could see Charles raining down some ground and pound, just maybe trying to open up a finish against Ode, maybe even rain some ground and pound, and eventually Ode turns the wrong way, and maybe Johnson can slip up under a choke or something like that, or maybe he just finishes him off via TKO. But I'm rolling with Charles Johnson here. I really have liked what I've seen from him as of recently, and I think that he continues that momentum into this fight. We'll take a look at the live betting line right now. Charles Johnson's a -185 favorite over the talented Ode. Ode a +146 underdog here. Am I going to say that I think there's more value on a +146 line with Ode Osbourne being as dangerous as he can possibly be if he lands that right shot there early in this fight? No, I'm gonna side with Charles. Like I said, I think that Charles avoids that early threat and takes this fight into his terms as the fight goes on. Jordan Leavitt taking on Victor Martinez. Victor Martinez looking to make his UFC debut here, coming off a big victory against Jacob Rosales. Now, the thing with that fight is, first off, understand that Jacob Rosales is a dangerous fighter. He's a very well-rounded fighter, has a good wrestling pedigree, throws some heavy shots in the feet. But the issue that we have there when we analyze that fight is, although Victor looked very good, Jacob Rosales broke his right hand. I believe it was his right hand in that fight, right around the second round. But, I don't really want to take anything away from Victor Martinez, because I thought he looked very good early on in that fight, even when his opponent was still fully healthy. And even with Rosales having that broken hand, I just thought that Martinez looked really good. The way he was pushing the pace, he showed to have good cardio. He showed to have good takedown defense. He's a scrappy dude. He is 31 and a half years old. He's not a spring chicken, even though he's making his UFC debut just now. I think that he's a scrappy, dangerous fighter. And I think that he has the style to really put it on Jordan Leavitt here. We know that Jordan Leavitt's pretty much a one-trick pony. And, he's coming off that loss against Paddy Pimblett, where he was really styled on and finished and all that. Before that, was able to eke a victory against Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden, respected fighter in the game. For those of you guys that know about him, respected on the regional scene. He's a well-rounded fighter to an extent. And, Leavitt has shown that he can go out there and defeat those guys that you think that he may have problems with. The thing is, when I look at some of his big victories, like the Matt Sales victory, we know Matt Sales is pretty much a boxer. Yes, he's a mixed martial artist, but his main strength is his boxing, and he struggled a little bit there, struggles at times down in the mat. And Leavitt was able to exploit that. The slam that he had against Matt Wyman. Matt Wyman's just so aged, or he was so aged at the time, and we kind of understand how that all played out. I don't think that Victor Martinez is going to be that type of fighter. I think Victor Martinez is going to be stuffing takedowns, or really, really making Leavitt work hard for those, and he's going to be making him pay as he comes in. I like the boxing of Victor. I think that Victor will be on another level with his striking compared to Jordan Leavitt. And although Jordan Leavitt's a fun fighter to watch, he's funny, with the dancing that he does and whatnot. If he does go out there and pulls off a sub, it'd be funny to see him start twerking, popping the splits off. I just don't see it happening here. There's some potential for him to have success with his grappling. If he can get this fight down to the mat, start working some jiu-jitsu, take a back or whatnot, maybe try to look for a sub. We've seen him pull off an arm triangle choke on Dana White's Contender Series. He seems to have a very strong squeeze. But like I said, I just think that his opponent, Victor Martinez, is going to be a little bit of a stylistic kryptonite here in this matchup. That's why I'm taking Victor Martinez. Let's go take a look at the betting line here. Victor Martinez is a -120 favorite over Jordan Leavitt. So essentially a pick'em fight here, a very slight lean towards Victor's way. And, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that this line continue to go towards Victor's way. Let me see if we could see how this line's moving so far, where this line opened up. So, you take a look at DraftKings. I don't know if you guys can see this here, but Victor Martinez was a +110. He's now a -115 over on DraftKings. It's what I expected. I think the more people take a look at his tape, they're going to think that he's a stylistic nightmare, or just at least a stylistic tough matchup for the Monkey King. So give me Victor here to get the job done. And I think there's some potential that he lands some big shots here and hurts Leavitt on the feet. So does he get that finish? I'm going to say more of a unanimous decision. Gabriella Fernandes looking to make her UFC debut here against Jasmine. Jasudavicius. Jasmine coming off a loss against Natalia Silva. We do understand that Natalia Silva is a very talented up-and-coming fighter in the UFC, a very dangerous fighter. She since had another victory in the octagon. She has shown to be dangerous. So that loss not looking as bad against Jasmine, or for Jasmine there. Before that, Jasmine was able to dig deep and take a victory over Kay Hansen. We know that Kay Hansen has since been released by the UFC. Kay Hansen, a fighter that came in very young, had a very decorated jiu-jitsu skill set, but a fighter that definitely needs to work on her overall MMA game. These days, she's posting booty pictures on Instagram. She's on OnlyFans and all that. So, I'm not overly impressed with that victory either. And then if you also remember the fight that Jasmine had on Dana White's Contender Series against Julia Palastri, that was a fight where Jasmine showed that she has good cardio and she's a well-rounded fighter for a fighter that doesn't really have that grappling background. She's a fighter that came into the game late, and she's doing her thing. She has a nice frame. She's a tough chick. But in comes the newcomer, Gabriella. I've been decently impressed with her work over in LFA. I think that she is a little bit more of the polished striker here. I like the way that she works in her body kicks with her boxing. I could see her getting the better of the striking exchanges here, as Jasmine will probably look to make this more of an ugly fight, throwing a couple strikes, dropping her head, leading it with the headbutt into a little body clinch, trying to rip some takedowns. And as long as Gabriella can have success stuffing those takedowns, I think that Gabriella will be the fighter that gets the better of Jasmine. That's kind of the way I'm going here. I think this could be a closely contested match. But like I said, I've been decently impressed from the limited tape I was able to pull up on Gabriella Fernandes. And Jasmine's going to have a 1-inch height advantage and a 1/2-inch reach advantage. But I am interested to see how these ladies look when they square off on the scales, next to the scales at the weigh-ins. Because Gabriella has looked to have a good frame against all of her opponents that I've seen her fight with. She looks to be a solid fighter. So I'm curious to see if there's really anything going on there. 9 pro fights for Gabriella, 9 pro fights for Jasmine. These women, they do have some similarities here. And I'm going to go with the Brazilian here. Let's take a look at the betting line. Let's see what kind of line we're talking about right now for the UFC newcomer, Gabriella. Gabriella Fernandes is a -145 favorite right now, with Jasmine being a +110. That's interesting, and there has been some line movement on Gabriella as well. Gabriella Fernandes, like I said, another fighter making her UFC debut, a little bit less known as of now. People are starting to dive into the tape, and you're seeing that line movement. So, I'm on Gabriella Fernandes to get the job done here as well. I think that she'll be the sharper striker. Erick Gonzalez taking on Trevor Peek. If you guys were diving into the tape for this fight card, as I'm sure a lot of you guys were, how fun was it to rewatch that Trevor Peek versus Malik Lewis fight? Of course, we all saw it live on Dana White's Contender Series about 5 months ago. That fight was one of the standout fights on that season, if you ask me. Malik Lewis, a very talented fighter. He was undefeated at the time. A lot of people are still hyped up about Malik. I think that he will bounce back after that loss. Malik Lewis dropped Trevor Peek early, but Peek showed to be extremely resilient. He has great cardio. He has serious power. We already knew that coming into the fight. All this guy does is go out there and knock dudes out. I believe he is excuse me if I'm speaking out of terms, but I believe he's an ex-drug addict. And you guys know how some of these ex-addicts, they become clean and they fall in love with the sport of MMA. And these guys are a little bit different, right? Like the Jared Gordons of the world. I mean, these guys, they have extreme willpower. They go in there, they're just cut a little bit differently, if you guys catch my drift there. Trevor Peek is that type of guy. I mean, he seems like the type of fighter you could take a steel baseball bat, whack him upside the head, and he's just going to continue to come forward and look to break you. And that's what he showcased in that fight. I've been impressed from what I've seen from him. Definitely needs to refine some of his. He needs to refine his skill set overall, not even just his striking. I think he needs to refine certain things with his grappling, his striking, his overall mixed martial arts game. I think that he's a fighter that's very mentally tough, and once he starts to refine those skills, I think he'll even be a much better fighter. But he's very promising. He's very promising. I mean, look at the jawline on him, straight up. I mean, look at that chin right there. That's a right angle right there almost. I mean, this guy can take a shot, like I said, and you see him breaking down Malik Lewis there. This is a fighter that I think can really become kind of a fan favorite if he's able to hang around in the UFC. I think that a lot of people will gravitate towards him. A little bit similar to a Bryce Mitchell mixed with the Jared Gordon, if kind of a mix of those two, a little something like that going on here. And then you get the Ghost Pepper, Erick Gonzalez, a fighter that's getting another opportunity here. Erick Gonzalez just got finished by Terrence McKinney, got knocked out by Jim Miller. That was his UFC debut. And Erick Gonzalez has had a lot of success over in Combate. He's a fun fighter. I think the UFC put this fight together based on the fact that they know it's going to be a fan-pleasing fight. This is a fight, mark it down. This is a fight that you don't want to miss. This is going to be a potential fight of the night type of fight. If Erick can survive and hang around. Erick's a well-rounded fighter. He does everything pretty decent, but doesn't really do anything that good in my opinion. I'm leaning Trevor to get the job done here. I think that Trevor is going to kind of break him down. He's going to be the fighter that really marches forward, lands those heavy shots. I could see an early knockout victory here. Erick Gonzalez is going to have to show me something here. I understand, like I said, that he's a fan-pleasing fighter. You could pull up a lot of his fights on YouTube over at Combate and whatnot. I understand that he goes out there and he puts a show on, but you need to do a little bit more than that, because if you go out there and just get finished eventually, that's 3 losses in the UFC now in a row, and I don't think that you get another opportunity. So 5-inch reach advantage for Gonzalez. He's a couple inches taller, and I think that Trevor Peek is going to cut the cage off, close that distance, and land some big shots. Trevor Peek's a -190 favorite right now with the comeback in Gonzalez at +145. And give me Trevor Peek here to get a finish in this fight. I think he breaks Gonzalez down, maybe gets this fight down to the mat, rains down some ground and pound. Maybe he gets this fight down to the mat by touching Gonzalez's chin, dropping him there, and eventually getting a finish there. So that's the route I'm going. We're talking about another hard-hitting fighter coming off Dana White's Contender Series, and Yohan Lainesse. He'll be taking on Mike Malott, who's also a hard-hitting fighter coming off Dana White's Contender Series. Although Mike Malott, in my opinion, is a little bit more of a refined striker. Yeah, he has power, but I think he's more of an accurate pinpoint type of striker, whereas Yohan Lainesse, a fighter that really throws from the hip, throws heavy hooks, and looks to crack his opponents up. Had that big victory against Justin Burlinson on Dana White's Contender Series. Bounced back with a loss against Gabe Green. Showed very questionable cardio in that fight. And then in the fight against Darian Weeks that he just prevailed in a split decision, showed to have sharpened up his cardio a little bit. Kind of looked like he was slowing down in the second round, and then in the third round, dug deep and did enough to squeak by. I thought that he could have potentially lost that fight. I thought Weeks may have been the fighter that deserved to win that fight, if we're being honest. But he was able to keep it close enough. He was able to get a W, and here he is now getting matched up with his fellow countryman and Mike Malott, who I've been very impressed with. We know that Mike Malott, one of the striking coaches over at Team Alpha Male, let's talk about some of the work that he's been doing as of recently. First and foremost, before he even made it over to Dana White's Contender Series, we got to talk about the rear naked choke victory he had over Solomon Renfro. We know Renfro, a very respected fighter. Before that, or after that, he had the victory on the show. An official play of mine came through against Shimon Smatrotsky, the young Israeli fighter. And then after that, the Mickey Gall knockout. I was literally cage side for this fight. I was down in the bottom. I saw this fight right there. You guys that follow me on IG, you've seen the video. But Mike Malott, I've been decently impressed with what I've seen from him. 10 pro fights. He's 31 years old. He's not young. Neither is Lainesse. Both of these fighters need to go out here and look to make a statement and try to really get that ball rolling quickly because, like I said, they're not young and they want to solidify themselves in the UFC, try to get some big name fights. And I'm leaning Mikey Malott's way here. Like I said, I think that he's the more refined striker. I think that he shows to be more of a disciplined fighter. I expect his cardio to hold up a little bit better. But I'll take the fighter that throws straight shots and is more technical over the looping, powerful puncher any day, at least in this matchup here. I mean, obviously, depending on what fighters we're talking about. But in this matchup here, and most of the time, you talk about two evenly matched fighters, I am taking the more polished technical fighter than the fighter that throws from his hips, has shown to have question marks with his gas tank. So give me Mikey Malott here. He's a minus 230 favorite. Come back on Lainesse at plus 185. Don't forget that Lainesse can crack. If these guys get into a slugfest, Mike Malott has shown that he's willing to sit in the pocket and look to end the fight in his own way. So, yeah, obviously, when you're looking to do that, his opponent will always have that chance to land that shot first. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see these guys throw down and this fight ends up being an entertaining one. But Mikey Malott will be the fighter I think that's more likely to land that fight-ending shot. Give me Mike Malott to get the job done. And maybe he gets the finish here. Maybe he gets that knockout in the first or second round. Maybe we see Lainesse go out there looking to land that big shot, but he gets countered and put out. Tatiana Suarez looking to step back into the octagon. It's almost been 4 years, just over 3.5 years, taking on Martinez de la Rosa. I've been very excited to see Tatiana make her return to the octagon. I was so high on her from back in the day when she was doing her thing. We know she's undefeated. She goes out there and just wrestles, man. She takes her opponents down. She works them. Obviously, she's been working on her overall game, but victory over Nina Nunez, the ground and pound victory over Carla Esparza, the former champ, a rear naked choke victory over Alexa Grasso, victory over Vivian Pereira, a Darce choke victory over ABC Amanda Cooper. I mean, if you forgot some of the work that she's put in, definitely remember that she finished Carla Esparza and finished Alexa Grasso. Okay, so understand that. She's 32 years old. Unfortunately, she missed a lot of her prime years. But again, her wrestling is really ridiculous. And then you got Martinez de la Rosa. The poor girl, she's been getting some tough matchmaking as of recently. I really do believe that she's becoming a much better version of herself. She's just, like I said, having some tough matches made for her. Took an L against Macy Barber. You know, Macy Barber's really starting to look good here. Macy had some success with her wrestling in that fight. And I think that's where Suarez is obviously going to look to have success here. And I think that she will. As long as Tatiana Suarez's body holds up, she's getting takedowns. She's working her way to a finish, maybe a potential rear naked choke or a ground and pound finish. Again, it's just the question mark is how is Tatiana Suarez going to look from the long layoff, the injuries and whatnot? But all signs are pointing to the fact that she's ready to go. She's been waiting till she was feeling like she's ready to step back in there, and all signs are pointing to her being ready. Understand that Martinez de la Rosa throws some nice straight shots down the middle with her boxing. She's a tough chick, but she's going to be outgunned here, in my opinion. Suarez to potentially get that finish there. And we'll take a look at that betting line, which you'll see Suarez is a minus 850 right now. So you understand that she's getting that respect. People didn't forget what she's about. That's a high line. What are you going to do with it? Throw it in a parlay? What are you going to do with it? It's a minus 850. It's a very high line. Throw it in a parlay if you really feel like you need to have action on the fight. Augusto Sakai taking on Don'Tale Mayes. Augusto Sakai coming off 4 losses. But let's take a look at the names of the fighters he's losing to. Sergey Spivak, Tai Tuivasa, Jairzinho Rosenstruck, and Alistair Overeem. So understand all respectable opponents, although it hasn't been a good look the way that he's been going out there getting finished. He kind of reminds me of Bigfoot. You guys remember Bigfoot Silva? They are very similar fighters from as far as the way they look, also to their fighting style at times, But at the same time, Augusto Sakai does have quicker hands than some people think. His boxing is pretty decent. If you remember his victory over Blagoy Ivanov, that was a big victory for him. Let's run the table back a little bit and remember some of the work that he's put in before all these losses that we talked about. Knockout victory over Marcin Tybura, a split decision, a very rare split decision victory over Andrei Arlovsky. As of recently, not a lot of people taking decisions away from Arlovsky. Finished Chase Sherman. And then you can go back to his Bellator days, squaring off against Czech Congo, went to a split decision there as well. I mean, it's really tough to gauge Sakai right now, coming off those 4 losses, based on the fact that they were against high-level opponents. He's only 31 years old, but I don't know if I have much faith in his chin these days. Don'Tale Mayes, I do believe that he carries some power. I do believe he has potential to put people out. Now, he is coming off a loss to Hamdi Abdul Wahab, but that was a fight where Hamdi did test positive for some type of steroids, so that fight was overturned. If you guys remember, there was a big controversy with that fight where one of the judges actually gave the 3rd round to Mayes when that should have never been the case. Joe Rogan was going back and forth with that judge. But that's an L right there, but depending on how you want to look at it with the drug situation, and curious to see how Hamdi bounces back after that. The first Egyptian UFC winner, I do believe. Before that, a knockout victory and a decision victory over Rock Martinez and Josh Parisian. Lost to Rodrigo Nascimento and Cyril Gane before that. It's really hard to judge Don'Tale Mayes as well. I mean, Don'Tale looked good against Josh Parisian. That's really his standout fight. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here. He's 3 inches taller. Don'Tale Mayes moves kind of slow at times. And, I've been a little bit back and forth on who I was going to go with here. There's a lot of moving parts. But I am going to be taking Don'Tale Mayes here. I think that, I don't know. I think that Don'Tale Mayes can touch him and hurt him here. And I just got to see that Sakai is back before I could trust in him. His head movement isn't good. He freezes up a little bit on the feet. He's been looking a little slow. And Don'Tale Mayes, I think he comes in hungry here. And, a little bit less of miles on Don'Tale Mayes, where he hasn't been, finished as brutally as of recently, time and time again. Give me Don'Tale Mayes here, and there might be a potential fight-ending blow landed by Mayes. We might see a finish here. And let's go take a look at the betting line. Don'Tale Mayes, a plus 110 underdog with Augusto Sakai at a minus 130 favorite. So an interesting line, but very close. But I am going with the slight dog in Don'Tale Mayes here. After Brendan Allen's last victory, I was on Instagram doing some matchmaking, as I like to do. And Brendan Allen saw what I posted or whatnot, or saw my comment, and he was interjecting a little bit, which is cool. The more the merrier. That was pretty cool that he was chatting it up and whatnot. But the match that I tried to set up for him, or that I was just throwing out there and really picking his thoughts, I believe it might have been Andre Petrosky. I might be wrong there. If it wasn't Andre, it was somebody that was pretty reputable in the division, that's been putting in some work, that was coming off a big win. And, Brendan Allen, with all types of confidence, was saying that fight makes no sense because he's a step way above. The way he said it was pretty cocky. And I have no problem with that. I like that. This dude thinks that he's supposed to be fighting the best in the division. Well, guess what? Now you're taking on Andre Muniz. So we'll see how that goes for you. But again, no shame. Allen has won 4 of his last 5 fights. Now, the Jacob Malkoun fight was questionable, right? A lot of people thought that he potentially could have lost that fight, depending on how you looked at it. The loss to Chris Curtis, got knocked out, got finished there. Brendan Allen got finished by Sean Strickland not too long ago also. Victories over Christoph Jocko, he looked good there. The victory over Sam Alvey, that we're talking about Sam Alvey now. And then before that, Punale Seriano, who just gasses out. So when you really dissect Brendan Allen's victories, I'm sorry, but and again, the questionable victory as well, the resume is not looking as good as maybe he thinks it is. But again, no shade thrown his way. All fighters should have that confidence. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but as an analyst of the fight game, I got to call it for what it is. And I think that Andre Muniz is going to give him trouble here. Andre is an absolute wizard down on the mat. Allen favors his grappling for the most part. I mean, he's been working on his striking, but it's very slow and clunky. Even dating back to his fight on Dana White's Contender Series, where he fought, let me pull this up real quick. I want to say it was Dawkins, but I might be wrong there, actually. I think that might have been his UFC debut for Dawkins. The fight I'm talking about, it was against Aaron Jeffrey, another fighter that reminds me of Dawkins to an extent. But Aaron Jeffrey, who's been doing his thing over in Bellator, a very well-rounded fighter. Jeffrey was having a lot of early success, and then Allen got the fight down to the mat and was able to pull that rear naked choke. But he was getting teed off on early. He was able to exploit Holland's ground game and Tom Breeze's ground game. The Dawkins fight was a close one. When you analyze his overall resume, I think that there's just some question marks, in my opinion. I don't know. If you want, I don't want to go on too long about them, but I think you guys catch my drift here. Muniz, on the other hand, is just nasty down on the mat. His jiu-jitsu is just wicked fast. It's so dangerous. I mean, we saw what he did to Jacare Souza, right? Didn't he break Souza's arm? It was disgusting. The armbar over Erick Anders as well, showing how dangerous he is there. Yeah, it was the inverted armbar where he broke Jacare's arm, coming off a victory against Uriah Hall, where he's showing that he's working on his striking as well. And I think that Muniz is going to want to get this fight down to the mat. And I think that he'll be a step ahead of Ailin. And Ailin will think that he'll have success there. He'll be confident in himself, but Muniz will be too quick for him. And he'll be transitioning with the submission attempts. And I think he might even pull one of them off. On the feet, Muniz is a lot faster, a lot quicker with the striking as well. But Ailin's grounded there. He has some good power. But give me Andre Muniz here. I've been very high on Muniz, and you guys know that. He's came through for me with some official plays. And we caught him early on before he was all hyped up too, right? So we had him against Jacare. Before he really proved himself, we've been riding with him, and I'm riding with him here for sure. He's a minus 220 favorite, so you understand that the hype is real, and just be a little wary because Brendan Ailin is a dangerous opponent, and he will show up and he'll look to make this a close fight. But Muniz will be a step above. Again, some of these lines are hard to call. Which way do you like the line here? Potential value on Ailin, but at the end of the day, I think that Muniz just goes out there and showcases once again. So is that minus 220 line really that bad? It's a close one there. But I hope this fight really plays out on the mat a lot. I hope we really get to see the ground game take place here. And I hope that Muniz can pull off a sub. We'll see how it goes. Nikita Krylov taking on Ryan Spann in the main event. Nikita has been looking very good. Only 30 years old, coming into the prime of his career. If you guys remember, he was a fighter that was fighting in the UFC when he was very young, departed from the UFC, was fighting over on the other side of planet Earth for a little bit, made his way back to the octagon, and has looked to be more dangerous than ever. Real quick, you see that he's only won 3 of his last 5 fights, but just note, and I know this is a weak answer, but he made a mental mistake against Paul Craig, and he knows that. He's learned from it. We know Paul Craig at times is able to pull those types of maneuvers off against fighters where he kind of plays possum, kind of sucks them into the sub. We saw him do it to Magomed and Aliev with 1 second left. And also note that the other loss that he had was against Magomed and Aliev. You guys know, in my opinion, he's the best light heavyweight fighter on planet Earth right now. Time will tell, though. We'll see what's to come here in the near future for that division. But Nikita's the truth. I really believe that. He's so light on his feet for his size. He's an excellent striker. We know he has that karate base. He's very light with the striking and all that, but he's showing that his ground and pound's nasty as well. He's working on his wrestling, and then on the other hand, you got Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann, a fighter that's been shown to have serious power. I mean, if he touches you, there's absolutely no question that he could put your lights out. You can't see who he's hitting over here. I'm kind of in the way, but this was his most previous fight where he knocked out Dominic Reyes, potentially ending the career of Dominic Reyes, which was very funny. If you guys didn't know, I don't know if it's funny, whatever word you want to use, but I was watching that fight with one of Dominic Cruz's boys, like his legit boys. I bumped into him at the bar. Just was recently moved to the area that I was in at the time, and he was his boy for real. I mean, he was showing me pictures. They were really cool, and this was like the first time that he wasn't watching Dominic Reyes' fight live. He was showing he's always at the events with the whole crew and all that, and I saw Spann go out there and knock his boy out, and he was quiet, man. He looked like he was pretty upset, and the first thing he was saying is he doesn't want to ever see his boy fight again, and that they're going to be trying to get him to retire. That was the word that he was saying, that him and his boys they don't want Reyes fighting no more. So I mean, Ryan Spann was the man to make that conversation stir up, man. This guy has some serious power. Just knocked him out with the power jab. Before that, submits Ian Cutelaba. Before that, the loss to Anthony Smith, at times showing to have some mental lapses down on the mat. The KO victory over Misha Serkinov, once again showing that power. And then the loss to Johnny Walker, that was a wild fight as well. I'll tell you what, Nikita Krylov is a really bad matchup for Ryan Spann in the sense that if Nikita plays this fight smart and keeps his distance and lets the fight play out, remember this is a 5-round main event fight too, I'm really not a fan of the way that Ryan looks as the fight goes on. I really think he starts to slow down. His shots are telegraphed very much so. If you remember his fight against, let me pull that up real quick. we got to date this back a little bit, but I want to pull up the fight that he had against was it Sam Alvey? Even against Sam Alvey, yeah, split decision victory that he had there. He really started to slow down in that fight. Then you could see his punches coming from a mile away. And, that was a 3-round fight. And, if he doesn't get that early knockout, look at all his victories recently. First round. If he doesn't get that first round knockout, I really think that Krylov will run circles around him. And not only will he win the fight, but I think that he'll have the ability to knock Spann out. I think that Spann will be so slow and clunky, and Krylov will be able to hit him with a beautiful head kick or something of that nature. And if you guys don't remember, we've seen Krylov pull those types of moves off. Even if you go back to his Fight Night's global days, knocking out the former Bellator champion Emmanuel Newton with the knee, but the head kick over Ed Herman. What else has he done over here? I mean, he's had some big time knockout victories. He really has. The Walt Harris knockout. He hit him with the head kick there. I'm telling you, his legs get up there quick, and if Ryan Spann slows down like he normally does, I'm sensing a little bit of a head kick coming his way towards the 3rd round in this fight. So, I think you guys know which way I'm going here. I am taking Nikita Krylov to get the job done. I'm a fan of the work that he puts in. I think that he has not reached his full potential yet, and when he does, I think that he's a guy that could throw his name in the hat of the mix of some of the best light heavyweight fighters on planet Earth. But in the meantime, he better be wary because Ryan Spann has some serious power, and if he lets Ryan touch him with one of those big shots early, he will be sleeping. And we've seen Nikita make a mental error in there just recently, like we talked about against Paul Craig. So if he does something similar to that by just being not on his IQ, his fighter IQ, Spann will sleep you. So, but that all being said, Nikita Krylov via TKO to get the finish here in this fight. Nikita Krylov, a -170 favorite right now with the comeback on Spann at +140. Another very accurate line. I'm leaning Krylov's way, though. I like him here. It's a little bit dangerous, but just don't let that line creep up to the -185, 190, 200 on you. Grab it early if you want it. And maybe you look for the under here. This fight to not go the distance, those types of things. And I think that we're going to be seeing this fight end before the 3rd round finishes. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC Vegas 70. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, and it will help you guys out from a betting perspective or just making the fights more exciting for you as the fighters are making the walk to the octagon, just some background knowledge in all these fighters. Appreciate all you guys, as you know. Hopefully you guys like some of the new stuff you see here, but again, you guys have to understand that I'm just working on some things here, so that this is really nothing. Take a look at how this channel is going to look in the next 2 months, and you're going to see some major improvement. These are just kind of some preliminary testing type of things, if you will. Just trying some new things out here with this new program. I'm not a fan of the lighting I got going on here. I'm working on some camera things and all that. Looking to get some new equipment. And but look, you guys remember I told you guys a couple of weeks ago that you were going to see some evolution with this channel. We talked about working on your guys' selves as well and staying true to some of your goals you had. I showed you guys that I've been working on what I got going on over here. If you guys see my new videos coming out to you, not even with this style, but working on some other things here. You guys are seeing the evolution. So you guys make sure you're keeping your word and you're working on what you guys said you were going to be working on for 2023. We're only in February. So, I mean, we got a lot of time to go throughout this year to really start accomplishing some of those goals that we talked about. All right, guys. So I want to leave you guys with that. Make sure that you guys are putting in some work. And if you guys got a little distracted throughout the month of February and you kind of were messing around and you guys are a little bit behind pace, that's all right. Just hear me right now in your ears and let's get back to it. Let's get back to what you guys were supposed to be working on, right? So, all right, guys. I'll leave you with that. Nothing extremely deep. I promise you guys I'll have some better ones coming your way. I've been on this mic all day today trying to get these videos out to you. We had the recap video posted here at the channel, which again, remember, you guys can check those out. It was another profitable event, last event, and you guys can get the recap of UFC Vegas 69 and all that here as well. Plus a lot more content. Okay, guys? You guys check out the intro to that video too. I got some intel on what happened with that McGregor situation. Go check that out, and maybe eventually I could release who my source was. All right, guys. But right now I can't say anything. But just know that it's pretty messed up what happened to those 3 fighters, and hopefully they will be done right and we'll get an opportunity. So I'll be talking about that more so. All right, guys. On that note, signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.